Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Cataloging Committee meeting this morning. I hope you all can see the agenda posted in front of you. Please let me know if you cannot. Not hearing anything. I'm assuming everyone can see it. Lori has agreed to be our recorder again this morning, and so we don't have to worry about that one. I'm wondering if there's any other additional agenda items anyone specifically had in mind. Wow, it is super quiet.
Maybe it's because it's a Monday morning.
Maybe. I'm assuming then that there are no additional items. So with that said, let's take a look at the meeting minutes from December. And I did not pull those up. Did everyone get a chance to look at them? Lori got them sent out pretty quickly, if I recall. Is there any comments, questions, corrections? I can pull those up if need be.
My recollection was that the minutes were fine.
Well, if no one has any other things, I entertain a motion to accept them.
Did you hear that, Dia?
I didn't hear anything, sorry.
Oh, I second the motion to accept them.
Okay, so I'm assuming Beth is the one to make the motion?
Yes, I can
Okay.
be recorded as one making a motion.
It's Monday morning.
Apparently so. Any objections to accepting them? If not, we'll assume that they are passed. Beth, would you like to give us a report on authority record loads? Cleanup,
Sure, I'd be
etc.
glad to. I exported all of the records created in the past year up through the end of January to our authority vendor LTI. Got new authority records back along with updated BIB records, and those have all been loaded into the system. I'm currently working on updating all of the subfield 0 fields in the BIB records to make sure that they are reflecting the most up-to-date authority record. And in the process of loading authority records, I also cleaned up a lot of duplicates, so you should see a lot fewer, although I can't promise that they're all gone. The other thing I ran over the weekend was a authority linking script, which what it does is it currently there's functionality in the system to create see also entries. So that functionality, I ran the script to create those, and I don't know whether we have time to look at them today as an example, but I have one to suggest if Dia's got the catalog up. Otherwise, we can wait till the end of the meeting.
I actually do have the catalog up, so
Okay.
it's here under
So
Browse the catalog, correct?
Under Browse the catalog, correct. And if you type, go ahead.
Just so everyone knows, the mentors mentioned, we talked about this a little bit last week, but if you've never been here, this is where you'll go, is up here at the top to the Browse the Catalog to get to this feature. So go ahead, Beth.
If you change the Browse for to Author,
Mm-hmm.
and then starting with Quick, Amanda, what you'll see is some See Also headings have been added to this list. So it's showing other names that this author writes under. So helpful. We were hoping for some See From or See Instead references, but those are, I haven't figured out a way to do those yet. The program does not create those at this point.
So we're a step further, but yet we're still not completely there.
Correct.
And this is partly in address to something that one of the catalogers in December brought up, that there isn't always a way to tell, who those, what the authorized heading is if you type it in. As one of, like if you type in Amanda Quick and that isn't the authorized heading, then you don't necessarily know that. You're just going to get whatever comes up in the system under that. So if you're searching authors, for instance, you may not get what you think you're going to get. So we're just kind of following this path to see if this might be helpful as another potential for us.
Yeah, and I think this is helpful information, especially if we have patrons who like a particular author and they don't realize that this particular author has written under several other names.
Mm-hmm.
It gives them an opportunity to expand their reading. So I like it. It's just not all the way there for situations like our J.A. Jantz, where the authorized heading is Judith Jantz. Our catalog is reflecting the correct authorized name, but not all of our patrons know her as Judith. So we were hoping that we'd have an entry in here that would give us that information. So I'll keep working on it, keep thinking of a way that we can get that to happen, but I just wanted to show you the latest in the authority work.
Thank you. Lori, are you ready to give a report on what you're finding with the duplicates?
Sure. It's just a repeat of the last few mentor meetings and the cataloging committee. I find the method that Beth and I are using is not a complete search for duplicates. It's only any records that would have been created within the same month. And I'm finding anywhere from 10 to 15 every month. And about half of those are created just in error. Somebody just didn't search right or didn't find the record that they could have attached to. But there's always about 6 to 10 that people in a library create in duplicate with batch record import. And I think what's happening is they import their records twice. It's usually within 3 to 6 minutes and you get 2 records. So I will put an email out just warning everyone when they do batch record imports, make sure you don't assume they're not there right away. Give it a little time. And that's my report for now. I also receive, every month I'm getting 10 to 20 just random duplicates that are sent in to me by different catalogers. And I clean them up and I try to figure out why they happened. But generally there's just a small variation in the record. But they are true duplicates, and I don't quite know how to stop that. So we just need to put our brains together and figure out how to stop all these duplicate records.
Thank you, Lori.
Dia, this is Beth again. Something I forgot to mention with the authority record update. Something that LTI does for us is they will also make corrections to non-filing characters, non-filing indicators. In the 245 and 700 7XX entries. Anyway, we had a lot of those cleaned up through this process too.
Oh, okay.
There was about 200 records out of 22,000.
How many again?
Around 200. I think several of them were Spanish titles
Okay.
where the correct indicator wasn't used for the Spanish article. But there was also a lot of English ones that were cleaned up as a result of the authority upgrade.
Okay. Just an update on the book standards. The mentors are still working on that. We've started working on some corrections to the book ones for update. Haven't got very far yet. Hopefully soon we will be a little further along on that process. It's kind of a, we all have jobs that comes first, so unfortunately some of these things take a little bit of time. So Cat 1 requirements. Lori, did you want to give this update or would you like me to?
My audio's a little sketchy here, Dia,
Okay.
so please do your best and I'll
Chime in as need be. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The mentors have been, as you all know, discussing Cat 1 requirements for how a cataloger moves from Cat 2 to Cat 1. And we've been doing this for quite some time, and we've really been weighing a lot of things and trying to approach this. I think we're getting a little bit closer. We're hoping in March to have a proposal to give to the SAGE User Council. We have a start on a draft as of our last meeting on Thursday last week, and basically it's going to be kind of some combinations of things. There will be some training requirements, of course, and then there will be working with a mentor for a length of time and having them also do some reviewing of the cataloging that's being done, and really kind of just a lot of side-by-side work with that. And so that's kind of where we're at this point. We don't have anything really very finalized, so I know it sounds kind of sketchy, but does anybody have any questions? Or Lori, do you want to put something more into that?
I would like some feedback if anyone has some to give us, and then I'll add to it if there's no comments. So I sent out my draft document to the mentors. Did you all see that? Carmen, Dia, Ann, Beth?
Yeah, I saw it was a good start.
Thank you, Barb, for your response.
So I guess the mentors will continue to work on that and hopefully have a good draft, a good proposal to give to the SAGE Council in March. Is that correct, Dia? Is that how we should proceed now?
I think that's what we were hoping to, and we're hoping that we'll be able to present it at the cataloging committee meeting in March. However, we only have one more meeting prior to that, so it may be that it will go straight from the mentors to the council. So that would give us a second meeting. So I just don't know for sure how that's going to work, but.
Well, I would say that at the very least, once we work on this document through the mentors group, then I will circulate it through the cataloging committee through an email, if that's what the mentors wish to do.
Right.
And maybe we can get some comments before we go right to the SAGE Council. I am hoping that we keep it flexible enough and have enough definition, but also have some allowances for people that will approach their cataloging requirements in different ways as needed.
Sounds good.
So the next item on the agenda pretty much follows part of that. The SAGE User Council Budget Committee is currently working on putting together a draft of next year's budget. And so with that in mind, the mentors decided we really need to get back on the budget with some training money. And since we did not have that through the process of our grant, we felt like we really needed to put in a request for that. So we requested a minimum of $2,000. I sent an email to the Budget Committee last week following our meeting, and we're hoping that the Cataloging Committee will just kind of say they're okay with that and that they're good with that. And what that training money is, kind of part of that is we're thinking that with this requirement for Cat 1 training, that there will be some subsidization of the cost of training. So that's what kind of we're thinking along the lines of, plus, you know, that maybe that we need some money for putting another training together of some sort. So is there any objection to that proposal?
This is Lori, and I just want to say to the whole group and hopefully to all the people that are cataloging that if you can think of a training element that you specifically need, you know, make sure you post that. You can send it to DIA or you can send it out to the CAT list and make suggestions, and especially if you notice a source for some trainings that may be intriguing you, share them with us, and hopefully we can keep just some level of professional training for those that are especially cataloging full-time or pretty near full-time. We sure like to keep our professional training options fresh and interesting and encouraging people to enjoy their discipline. So please share them or just ask us questions if you have concerns about your own level of training and capability.
Dia, this is Beth. I just was giving some feedback from the Budget Committee meeting that was held on Friday, and there were no issues with, we did add it into the draft budget.
Okay.
Which of course will be reviewed by the SAGE Council at their meeting. We're having an extra meeting in February to go over the budget. So I don't anticipate any problems, but I wanted to let you know that we did add it to the draft budget.
Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda, analyzing BIBs for import into SAGE. Through looking at a number of BIBs that have been brought in recently for various reasons, whether it's you know, incorrect or bad character symbols, that side of things, or duplicates or whatever, the mentors realized that there are a couple of things, couple of tips that may be helpful to you in looking at the Z39.50 import side of things. And so I'm going to bring up that screen and if I can find where I put it. Okay. And just kind of review a couple things with you. And mentors, if I'm missing something, please jump in, because I'm thinking this was what we were talking about, but I'm not sure. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the fact that you can make this screen full. So when you're reviewing those records that you bring up, you can see more than just a little, this little space down here. There are two methods which you can do that. There's a little roller shade here that if you click it, it will push it up. And it just works. It's a toggle back and forth. But they've since added also this show and hide top panel. And that button is also very helpful. It gives you a bigger picture of actually the record. One of the other things, since we have added additional libraries here, sometimes this list can get to be very, very large. And we want you to pick the best record, of course, but we also don't want it to become such a thing that you don't even know where to start. So you get frustrated and you just pick the first record. We really don't want that to happen. So a couple of things I thought I would share that I find to be helpful when I go through this list. I thought I'd just show you show you an example. So this is one that I looked at this morning. It's not a very lengthy list, but I thought it would be easy to be able to just show you really quickly. So this is an ISBN search. It's actually for a large print book, and I get four hits on it. So I'm going to collapse this upper portion, and I'm just going to show you what I see, and I'll walk you through what I do first thing so that I can start eliminating. First thing I do is I kind of look at the completeness of the record, and I look to see if it matches my amount of pages and my size. That's the first thing I look at. So I just kind of do a quick look through them. This one particularly was not the size pages or the amount of pages I was looking for. I was looking for 388, I believe it was. So I kind of eliminated that one first as kind of a possibility. Looked at this one, it didn't have an 008, so I kind of went, okay, that's not really on a high my priority list. Looked at this one, it has what I'm kind of looking for, but I also noticed that it was from Sydney. Then I looked at this one, oh, this one's from Sydney too. I don't have the book right in front of me right now. I didn't notice that that was an issue, but this one does not have it's not been completed, so it's a CIP record. So out of those four, I quickly eliminated 3 of the ones, which brought me back to, a record that I possibly could use. So that you may find that helpful. You may find that that doesn't work for you. Does anybody else want to give any suggestions, input as to how best they find this works?
The other thing, Dia, that I look for right away is up in the fixed field. If it's a new record, an N, and then right away I'm on high alert. Usually they aren't good bibs.
Okay.
And you only had 2 that were not.
And you're speaking this one right here, correct? This
right. The P is not. What's P stand for? It's not corrected. It's post publication or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Right. So
look that one up.
P. Right. So P is the first level of correcting them.
Here's an N.
Right.
And again, this one to me right away was a no-go because it doesn't even have the 008 at all.
And another criteria, even if you find 2 or 3 records that are complete, there still are some records that come across without RDA elements.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the preference to bring in an RDA bib if all other things are created equal.
Well, and another thing too that I also look at as I do this is, you know, completeness of the record. You know, one of the things that a lot of our patrons have asked for is they'd like to have summary information. So if a record is identical to another but it contains the summary, I'm going to go with that one over the one that doesn't have the summary, or, you know, along those lines. Sometimes it's still not the best record, so I'll grab the summary and toss it in the record. But at least it gives you a starting point as to how to start eliminating. And that's what we were hoping to give you, just a couple of extra tools to have in your bag for when you have those lists of 10 to 20 records and you don't even know where to start.
And at some point, I guess we need to discuss, maybe after we get our Cat 1 training going, but we need to discuss the critical things that we feel that should be upgraded if a bib does not come across with those key elements. And also what things should be deleted. I don't know, the 5.9x fields, if they don't pertain to our library, I do remove those.
I do too, and I've done some cleanup on that as well, but it is a helpful thing if folks do remove them if they're not obviously appropriate for the record, which usually they are not.
Can you scroll down on that, Dia? Are there any genres in that one? There are two. Australian?
Right.
Great. Yeah.
This was not the record that I chose out of the 4. This is the one that I chose out of the 4.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And some of those fields will automatically be stripped.
Right. Molly, thank you for your input on this. I was thinking this morning, things like this could be something that, you know, we could do from time to time. Have an opportunity where we could have a group session or whatever and go through things like this that would be helpful. So thank you for kind of putting that in my mind again, that these kinds of things would be opportunities that would give you all some assistance. So we will try to do some of that as well.
The other thing that we have been talking about for a few months are the corrupt symbols. This one does not appear to have any problem. What is the current rate of that, as Brent has shared his list with you, Dia? And that's the other thing that people need to know when they're importing from Z39s, that they tend to get some corrupt symbols or incorrect symbols. So what have you been seeing with Brent's reports?
Well, my last one was way bigger, but it covered a lot more things, so it really didn't give me much to say we're doing better or we're doing worse. I think people are more aware of, I think we are seeing less of them, but they are still sliding through. So please be aware again that especially, and I know Brent in his system report this week mentioned, if you are bringing in records that have specifically names that have accents, be watching for those things, because those are some of those key ones that come up with weird things. So that also, a lot of times in the 264, if there is a second one with a second indicator of 4, oftentimes that's where you'll find some funny things for the copyright symbol. Probably your biggest places to watch are your 245s, your 5XX fields. If you're working with audios or visuals, make sure you watch those 508s and 511s, because a lot of times they slip through in there. And in your 7XX fields, there are oftentimes in the subjects as well. but those are really the ones that I find are the ones usually are the where they're hitting. So just do a quick scan over your records, watching for that as well if you would. And you'll also start kind of maybe noting some of the specific libraries that those ones come from to watch more closely when you choose a record from that site.
Another field to watch out for is the GMD. I've been seeing records come in with video recording with DVD in parentheses.
Thank you.
And also brackets large print without the text notation. And it could be that whatever catalog we're grabbing these from, they've made a decision to not go standard with their particular GMDs. But for us to be consistent, I think we should use just the ones we have said are the correct ones.
I agree. Thank you. And pretty much we are following what used to be the standard of those. The only one that we chose to do a little differently, and it is according to AACR rules, was an acceptable one, was the text large print. Otherwise, the others were all originally the standard GMDs. And
yeah,
again, just as a reminder, if you bring in a record that doesn't have a GMD, please add it, because we have chosen to continue that for a while, even though RDA no longer kind of requests that you no longer add those. So, but they have given an exception for those who want to still use it. So, but if you're strictly along the lines of RDA cataloging, you're not going to add that generally. So, anything that comes out of OCLC, you're probably not going to find the GMD, because I believe they're starting to strip those. So, just be aware, be watching.
So again, catalogers could get a hold of you, Dia, with possible suggestions for some of these little mini trainings through
Yes,
GoToMeeting.
absolutely.
There was a lot of comments. A lot of comments were really appreciative of this idea.
Yeah, and I will, if anybody sends me any of that, I will start kind of putting together a list, and then the mentors will talk and decide who feels they would be able to do something like that, and we'll schedule a time to do that. And we'll also record it so that it can be available for viewing after the time that it's actually set if it doesn't work for someone. Okay, the next item on the agenda is other. Didn't know if anybody had any questions, comments, other things that they would like to bring before the cataloging committee and or the mentors as a whole. So I open up the floor for that. Wow, it is very quiet this morning.
it is very quiet. I'm still working on some cleanup of some online titles that got into the system without the correct tagging, so they're showing in other catalogs. Some of these are films on demand, they were missing the second indicator on the 856, and so it makes it visible to general SAGE users and doesn't restrict it to the library it belongs to. So anyway, I'm correcting those, but you might still see some in the system. I think I'm down to 1,000, a little over 1,000 that need to be fixed.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Anne, and I noticed that Tracy and Molly both put some things that they have questions on down in their writing.
Right. I just sent a note back to Molly.
Okay.
And Lori just replied that that is the book standards update that we're working on.
Right. Okay.
So,
And Tracy's question is related to the 260 and 264 fields, and I did mean to have you put that on the agenda. I forgot.
and I
We
somehow
have discussed it.
I missed that one in the chat. Sorry. Thank you. We did discuss this last week. We are, I'm not sure, did we really come to any major conclusion? Beth was going to look to see what the consensus, or what the default is in the Evergreen system for which one displays. We have a consensus that the 264 should be the primary display. So I'm not sure if Beth has had a chance yet to do that. It's only been a day or two since we had this meeting.
Another thing I was going to do related to that was pull a report of records that have both.
Both, yes.
And look at whether, if it has both, is it just a 264 with an indicator 4 for copyright date? Because if that's the case, then it's not going to be an issue.
Right.
So I was looking to see if it was going to be an issue. We did look at the code. Right now it is seeing if there's a 260 and displaying that. If there's not a 260, then it looks at the 264. So we did find out what the code by default is using. I just was hoping to do that research piece before we actually implemented a change.
Right. Okay. So the other thing that we discussed at the mentor meeting relating to this is that we're wondering if catalogers are doing a good job of analyzing the imports relating to this as well, as I look at my notes from our meeting last week. And so again, what we were just looking at in terms of all of those different things, looking to see if a record has a 260 and a 264, it may be that one of those was one of those records that was not fully under RDA. It's kind of a hybrid between AECR2 and RDA. So that's kind of where we're at this point. Until we really have time to look at the system, I don't think we really made any major decisions on it yet. Other mentors, fill me in if I'm speaking incorrectly here, please.
This is Lori, and I think part of what we said is that there's no problem leaving both in, but as you said, Dia, look at the records when you're importing. I think often that 260 is on a either an incomplete record or a not full level record, and so it hasn't been transitioned over yet. It's pre-publication, it would appear. So if you can find a record without that 260, that's preferred. If it's a full RDA record, it should just have a 264, is my understanding. But we're not doing any harm by leaving that in until Beth finds out how our system is indexing, and also we can do a cleanup, is my understanding.
Right.
Beth.
And I did look, I came across a document referencing the 264s in PCC, which is a program for cooperative cataloging, which is a national organization. And their documentation says that having more than one is acceptable. So it is okay right now for there to be 260 and 264 in a record. So we're just kind of watching at this point. I know, Tracy, that's probably not real definitive to answer your question, but that's kind of where we're at this point. Okay.
I have another topic since we have time. I would like for someone to address, that fact that Brent is leaving and that there will be a hiring committee. And I want to know how they will prioritize it. And as a cataloger, I certainly hope we find somebody with some evergreen background. I don't think that's likely from our region, but maybe Beth has a knowledge of somebody being interested in the position with a background. And I just want to know how we will get feedback, or how do we give the hiring committee our feedback.
Are you, as far as feedback, Lori, are you wanting to give some things that you are looking for in this candidate, or we've got several people on the personnel committee, had plenty of volunteers for that committee, which is great. We're having our first meeting tomorrow, and we'll be going over the job description, just talking about lots of different things related to this position. Obviously, it's something that we want to get filled as quickly as possible, but it is still going to take some time. We talked a little bit about it at the budget committee, looking at salary dollars and also thinking, if we had to prioritize which one, do we prioritize systems experience over library experience? Do we require a master's in library science? So I think, there'll be some of that discussion going on at the committee meeting tomorrow, but if you have any input into the position and what you'd like to see, I'd be glad to get those in an email.
I guess I'd be interested in seeing the job description.
Okay.
Not to make that group's job cumbersome, but before the position is filled, it would be kind of nice if we have concerns, and I may not even know exactly what my concerns are yet, but I do hope that it's somebody where we don't have to wait for 6 months to a year, where they become familiar with Evergreen and some of the strengths and weaknesses, and maybe even somebody who will be really good at, I guess I'm leaning towards systems management, just because then they will be able to help us not only identify all of the scope of what our system can do and how to apply it, but they may also be helpful in requesting development ideas to improve our tools. I thought Brent was great, and I thought he was just getting better all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's so, I'm kind of worried about it, just because he was so responsive when we had an issue, and I just hope it's somebody that has some background in Evergreen also.
Yeah, that would definitely be our preference. Until we post the job, I just have no idea what our likelihood is. I know that Brent started out working part-time for Hood River, and that's how he learned the basics of Evergreen software, and then once he was hired by Sage, he just learned quickly and was able to come up to speed on what he needed to know to help us out. So it's possible that a systems person could, but it still would take some time. I mean, it took some time for Brent to get familiar with all the stuff that I did. So, yeah, I guess it's an unknown until we start the process. And Anne, in answer to your question, does Brent know of anyone he could recommend? He hasn't mentioned anybody, but I'm going to make sure that I give him an opportunity to give feedback into this process.
Good question, Lori. Thank you, Beth, for the input and the update on that. So I know it does affect all of us.
That it does. And it was hard for him to make the decision. He enjoyed working with all of you guys.
Anything else for the meeting? Hearing none, the next cataloging committee meeting will be April 3rd at 11 o'clock in the morning, and of course via GoToMeeting. The mentors will be meeting as we have been the first Thursday of every month, so that means we will only meet one time between now and the beginning of the next cataloging committee meeting on our regular schedule, unless for whatever reason they determine to meet prior to the next meeting, but that hasn't been discussed yet. So
What is the next SAGE Council meeting date?
the next SAGE Council meeting date is March. It's the third Tuesday of March. The 21st. But like Beth said, they are meeting to look specifically at the budget draft this month. Actually, that will be a week from Tuesday. But I don't believe they're looking at anything other than that.
That's correct, yes, just the budget.
So their next regular scheduled meeting will be the 21st of March? Yes.
Yes.
Well, if there is nothing else, then we are concluded with our meeting.
Thank you, Beth. That was a good meeting.
Thank you, Dia.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I meant Dia and Beth. Excuse me.
Okay.
I figured you probably did. It's good.